Over the years of creating graphics for business owners for their service vehicles, uh, I've heard almost every single phone conversation that there is um, when they call inquiring about them. And when it comes down to the creative services, there is normally, you know, a top comment that's made from business owners that are just starting to look into branded service vehicle graphics. And what they say is, I want it to stand out, but I don't want it to be obnoxious. Do you know what I mean? And I know what they mean. But the irony is that you want it to be visible and identifiable, but you don't want to look like you have dragons and lasers and silly crap coming out of the sides of your service vehicle, which completely makes sense. So the first thing, should we work with these companies, we do, or what I do is I just dig right into their brand identity. Um, and as I've said a million times in the past, and I will continue to say it, of course, is, this is an extension of your brand identity rather than an extension of sales. And it's important to always consider that, because when you consider something a point or an extension of sales, you'll say different things. That's when you start listing all the features and all the bells and whistles and, all the contact and all the stuff, because you feel like the QR codes, all this nonsensical crap. Um, because you're trying to sell something, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're actually trying to be memorable. So, um, with that being in mind, what they're going to remember is your brand identity. They're not going to remember the QR code or the call to action as you're driving by and things like this. So with that in mind, the best way, the most effective way to stand out, which I don't even like that terminology. I'm always like, it's to be memorable, but whatever, we'll say stand out because that's the word that people use. In order to stand out and not look obnoxious, the first thing you do, look through that brand visual identity and see what we've got, and then you simplify. I'm talking simple. There are 3 questions that you need to answer when you're starting, and these are the only 3 things you need to consider. Who are you? What do you do? How do I get it? And you want to answer these questions in the most simple form. Nothing crazy. So in the most simple form is, a website, a web URL, and a phone number. You don't need an email. You don't need a secondary phone number. You don't need social media icons. You don't need QR codes, all of this stuff. The more you put in front of somebody, the more distracting it is. So you want to keep it in its most simple form. So who are you? This is all about brand identity. This is your logo, hopefully a mascot, if you have a mascot. Your colors. Colors are paramount, but you want to keep it simple, very simple. Your phone number, your URL. And what do you do? Of course, this is the service, and I primarily work with home service business owners with their service vehicle wraps. So, I find that a lot of the service owners, they gravitate towards trying to put an entire list of services, like just, 7, 8 things in a row, big laundry list of services. Um, and I push back on that as much as I possibly can, because again, no one's going to remember all of these services. So you try to keep things down to 3 maximum, right? Heating and cooling. There's 2. Electrical. And listen, commercial and residential do not, um, they don't count. Those aren't services. That's not what you do. That's just part of who you serve. But at the end of the day, because we're not pitching while rapping, we are positioning with rapping. And you're only going to be positioned if you're remembered. So focus on color. That's a big one. Focus on with your color. That's, of course, your identity. So you're going to be thinking about your logo, your mascot, if you have it, a prominent icon of some sort, maybe, an element. Um, what you do, your service, 1 to 3 only. How do I get it? You really want to keep that to a phone number and a web URL. And that is going to be how you are memorable when the time comes that your prospective customer needs your help.